barbarians are at our gates. Will we let them in to destroy everything we've built? Or do we stand and fight?
The rise of modern Islam through organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood and its penetration into Western societies, especially through higher academia, is no coincidence. To understand the hostility that radical elements in the Muslim world hold toward the West, we must look back at the origins of Islam, its foundational teachings, and how they continue to shape it today. Islam, as it exists today, remains deeply rooted in its 7th century origins. The Quran, which serves as Islam's core religious text, was compiled decades after the death of Prophet Muhammad under the rule of Caliph Uthman. It is a collection of oral recitations memorized by his companions and later recorded into a single text. However, unlike other major world religions that have undergone significant theological evolution, many interpretations of Islam, particularly within fundamentalist circles, continue to adhere to a literal, medieval understanding of the text. This includes concepts such as strict patriarchal laws, rigid social hierarchies, and even principles of weregild, or blood feud laws, where tribal justice often takes precedence over modern legal frameworks. One of the most severe aspects of Islamic jurisprudence is its treatment of women. Under Sharia law, a woman's testimony is worth half that of a man's in court, and in many traditionalist interpretations, she is legally bound to her husband in ways that restrict her autonomy. While moderate and reformed interpretations of Islam challenge these principles, in many parts of the world, these laws remain in place. For instance, some interpretations of the Quran permit physical discipline of a wife under the mere suspicion of disobedience. Islamist movements are driven by a central tenet, the establishment of a global Islamic order known as a caliphate. Today, many radical groups still embrace the 7th century doctrine that non-Muslims must submit to Islamic rule, either through conversion, taxation, or force. The Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, the Palestinians seeking to erase Jews in Israel, the mullahs in Iran, all of these groups seek to establish a Muslim caliphate that will enable them to lord over the rest of the world. They seek to fulfill the will of Allah. That means all of us are expected to submit to them and acknowledge them as our superiors. A controversial but well-documented concept within Islamist teachings is taqiyya, the strategic concealment of one's beliefs when interacting with non-Muslims. While originally meant as a protective measure for persecuted Muslims, extremist groups have co-opted this doctrine as a tool for deception in their ideological battle against the West. One of the most overlooked aspects of modern Islamism is its influence in Western academia. Since the late 20th century, prestigious universities have increasingly become battlegrounds for ideological warfare. Middle Eastern scholars, many of whom were trained under authoritarian regimes, have entered these institutions and helped shift academic narratives toward a more sympathetic view of Islamism, often at the expense of Western democratic values. Rather than critiquing the oppressive regimes they fled, these academics have directed their focus on vilifying the West, painting it as colonialist, genocidal, and oppressive. This has resulted in a generation of students who are taught to be ashamed of their own cultures, while ignoring the systemic issues within Islamist ideologies. It is genuinely puzzling to see Muslims all over the world trying to shame Western societies with accusations of genocide and colonization when the whole of the Muslim world was built through conquering whatever resisted its teachings of forced assimilation. It's a case of the pot calling the kettle black. The last group of people who have a right to shame Western society over its colonial past are the Muslims, not when groups like the Houthis still practice slavery. If Western societies fail to recognize and challenge this infiltration, they risk losing the very freedoms that have made them beacons of progress and enlightenment. The time to have this conversation is now, before it's too late.